Absolutely.
With sourdough bread or grain, how come you're okay making sourdough bread versus making maybe artisanal bread? Are there differences in nutritional value? Why does sourdough bread has advantage in your mind?
There's a huge difference. And here's the earliest example of anything resembling bread in the archaeological record is something like 14,400 years old. And for the entirety of the time that bread has been made, almost in every case, not every, in most cases, it's been leavened or it's risen, and it's been made using a combination of bacteria and yeast, wild bacteria and yeast that come from the environment. And it's very easy to capture the wild yeast. And this is one thing I always wonder, but where it comes from. It's everywhere. It's in the air. It's on your skin. It's on the table. It's on the wheat grains. It's everywhere. Both bacteria and yeast. And the way to capture it is simply to take some flour and water, mix it up, and put it out on the counter. And it literally gets attracted, and you're feeding and growing this army of wonderful bacteria and yeast to work for you. And you put it through several feedings, and all of a sudden you have this bubbling mass of dough that has both, again, bacteria and yeast in it. Now, modern bread, most of the bread that we see at the grocery store, even the stuff we see in the bakeries, is leavened and is made using only yeast. It's a commercial yeast. It's a standardized yeast. And the yeast, when it ferments, produces two things: carbon dioxide and alcohol. The carbon dioxide allows the bread to rise, creates the pockets, the air pockets, and the alcohol gets burned off during the cooking process. The bacterial fermentation does nothing really to allow it to rise. That's the charge of the yeast. But the bacteria, when it's fermenting, transforms the grains, the wheat grains, the rye grains, the barley, whatever it is you're using, into its safest and most digestible form, period. So the health benefits are coming from the bacteria. The textural quality is coming from the yeast. And I'll also say the flavor, the unique flavor profile, is also coming from the bacteria. It really adds a lot. So really good sourdough bakers control not only the health benefits from the way that they deal with the bacterial fermentation, but also the flavor profile in the final bread, which I think is super cool. When we don't have that bacterial fermentation, we're not putting it through the proper processes to make it as safe and as easily digestible by our bodies, which is really significant. We are not designed to eat grains. We're not designed to eat most foods that we eat, but this is a process that we're mimicking. This is a process that happens in other animals that eat grains, other animals that are designed to eat grains. I don't mean cows, because we feed grains to cows and they shouldn't eat the grains, but something like a goose is a great example.
Right.
When geese eat grains, it goes into a specialized digestive apparatus called the crop, where the grains sit and soak and ferment. Sometimes they even sprout, and then they go down into a gizzard, which are two muscular discs, and in between the discs are the rocks that the gastroliths are called, that the birds eat on purpose. And these discs grind these grains that have been fermented, and then these ground up fermented grains go into the rest of their digestive tract, where the nutrients, because they're in the right state, can be absorbed and used by that bird's body. Other than cooking, that goose is literally making sourdough bread inside of its body. And I've wondered for a long time. I said, I wonder, knowing that these birds eat grains and do fuel their bodies safely, on them, and we eat grains, but we don't have that apparatus inside of our bodies. I'm wondering, what if it was ever able, I said, I'm thinking to myself, I'd never be able to find this out, but if we ever were able to take a grain and bypass those biological, adaptations for grain eating, and put it right directly into its digestive tract, intestines or whatever stuff, what would happen to that bird? It was just kind of an intellectual thought, and walk away.
Right.
I'm never going to find out. Well, recently I found out it actually, I know what happens. The birds get sick. And there's a disease called angel wing disease, which geese and ducks get in city parks when old people, which we think is so cute, sit there and feed them Wonder Bread.
Right.
And what they're doing is they're feeding these birds essentially a human version, a human bastardized version of the food that they're designed to eat, but not allowing the process that's essential for them to break it down fully to take place. It's already been yeast fermented. There's no opportunity for it to do any real fermentation, and they feed it, and they actually get a malnourishment disease called angel wings, and there's malformations.
Deformities and whatnot. Now, would then, because you could buy your flour from the grocery store, right? $1 a pound, whatever it is. I'm pretty sure you run away from that. How about flour from a local flour mill that keeps the wheat germ in there? Is there any difference in quality, or is it the exact same thing? Oh,
that's a great point. Here's
your answer's scaring me already.
No. They're two completely different things.
Right.
One is the raw ingredient quality, and what we were just talking about is the processing of it. So let's say this: I would rather my family eat sourdough bread made entirely of white flour than whole grain yeasted bread that doesn't have the bacterial fermentation. I don't care what kind of flour it's made from. Now, in an ideal world, it's beautiful whole grain flour with the germ in it inside of it that's been through a sourdough process. But what I'm suggesting is the sourcing of the ingredient itself is incredibly important. But what's even more important, or at least equally as important, depending on the food, is how we've processed that food before it touches our lips, because we are not biologically designed to safely consume grains that haven't been processed the right way for us. So that I would, again, if somebody's listening to this and they're like, I really want to start baking sourdough bread, but the only thing I have access to is the, whatever flour at the grocery store, then get it, do it. The sourdough process is empowering, it's invigorating, it's taking that flour, making it as safe and nourishing as possible. Go do it. If you have access to the local mill that is milling it and you get the whole germ and all that, then fantastic, do that. That's a step better. But in my mind, the process in this particular case is more important than the ingredient.